All right. Welcome to the 5th episode of the PoE mechanics series that we're doing, where we try to do a moderately deep dive that we try to keep kind of bite-sized on a specific mechanic in the game to try to build out a library of content that we can have kind of consolidated as the library of PoE Xandria. Anyway, let's kick this off. Energy Shield is a form of defense. It acts as an additional hit point pool on top of life, however. Along with armor and evasion, Energy Shield is one of the 3 defense types that can implicitly appear on equipment, which is things like your body armor, gloves, boots, that it is an implicit thing. So something like a piece of item here is you hold Alt over it. You see right there, it says evasion rating. For something that has Energy Shield, you would see that there. You'll see that they will actually roll within a range. This was added, at time of recording a few patches ago. That can be re-rolled with a Sacred Orb, similar to armor. And there's also, there is the 4th defense type called Ward. It is important to know that there's a 4th one that the wiki has not been updated with. That does also exist. Unlike life, Energy Shield will recharge naturally after the character has not taken damage for 2 seconds. Every class starts with no Energy Shield and gains 2% increased maximum Energy Shield every 10 intelligence. So even if you're super smart, big old smarty pants, and you have, hey, let's look at this, 262 intelligence. If you have no Energy Shield on any of your equipment or through any other source, you will still have 0 Energy Shield. Now, how does it work? Damage mitigation. If the character has any Energy Shield remaining when damage is taken, even damage from lab traps, that damage is inflicted on Energy Shield first. Physical damage reductions and elemental resistances apply to damage before it is deducted from Energy Shield. So the damage that you take on your Energy Shield will be the same amount of damage as if it was going against your life. It doesn't come in a different step in the the defense mitigation phase. But so right at the very end, it'll hit your Energy Shield first, and then it will hit your life. Damage is only applied to life or mana once all Energy Shield is depleted. The exception to this is chaos damage, which bypasses Energy Shield entirely. So by default, if you take any chaos damage, something like poison, standing on desecrated ground, almost everything that Cirrus does, he does a lot of chaos damage, your Energy Shield by default will not even work. So if you have, if you are a hybrid build that has 3,000 Energy Shield and 4,000 life, but you don't have any other mechanics to play around with this, any chaos damage that you take will only be going directly against that 4,000 life. That 3,000 Energy Shield will do absolutely nothing against it. So it's really good to understand, especially if you're doing a hybrid build like that. Effects which modify the Energy Shield bypass. So this is a very, very common thing. Items such as Chevron's Wrappings and Solaris Lorca, they do the exact same thing. Chaos damage does not bypass Energy Shield. So the only difference here is that this one exception where it bypasses it, now that 3,000 plus that 4,000, the chaos would just hit the Energy Shield first, and then after your Energy Shield is depleted, it'll hit your life naturally, just like any other damage type. Esha's Visage, the Vol Spirit Shield, will do the same thing if you're not on low life. Coruscating Elixir will make it not bypass during the Flask effect. Corrupted Energy, if you have 5 corrupted items equipped, then 50% of that will not bypass Energy Shield. So this is actually kind of an interesting thing that you can take advantage of, is 50% of that will hit your life and 50% of that will hit your Energy Shield. And this is actually an advantage if you have something like Supreme Decadence, which is a keystone that allows you to use your life flask to get back life and Energy Shield. So you can kind of double dip that regeneration or that recovery from your life flask. And so the 50% bypass is actually, in some cases, better than 100% not bypass. And then there's a couple other instances here that are a little bit more specific. I'm not going to go into the full detail here, but what I actually just mentioned, the Burden Truth, this is what will do that by giving you the Supreme Decadence. So it's a really, really great way to make your character tankier in a hybrid build. And also double regen. This is the big thing with Inquisitors that can take advantage of that because their regen will apply to life and Energy Shield. That's why you'll find Inquisitors are usually a hybrid build because of that. Now, the very unique mechanic with Energy Shield, as stated at the beginning, is that Energy Shield will recharge naturally. The thing about life is I believe you may have 0 life regen by default. And so you need to get things like get stats on your gear that says life regen. However, access to life regen is very, very common. And so with life regen being super, super common, you're just going to get a ton of it very naturally. And you get, life flask by default, right? Whereas with energy shield, you don't regen. Like regen by default will not affect your energy shield whatsoever, but it does have a recharge mechanic, is a very, very strong mechanic. And that just reminded me of another thing that we need to call out here. There's a lot of keystones here that we're going to go over that do modify a lot of the mechanics. So how does it work? Energy shield will automatically begin to recharge if the character does not take damage for a certain period of time. That default is 2 seconds. Spending energy shield with blood magic or Eldritch Battery or a sacrifice mechanic does not count as taking damage. Things like lose life, lose energy shield, sacrifice life, sacrifice energy shield, those are very different mechanics than take damage. So you don't have to worry about things like that stopping your recharge. By default, the delay period is 2 seconds, but you can get faster start of energy shield recharge from passive skills and equipment. So let R be the sum of faster start of energy shield recharge. The delay period in seconds is given by 200. The delay period equals 200 divided by 100 plus R, where R is the faster start of energy shield recharge modifiers. So by default, like this is a very, very simple equation. By default, 200 divided by 100, right? That's 2 seconds. But if you had 100% faster start of energy shield recharge, right? It would be 200 divided by 200. And so that's 1 second, right? And so you can see that it scales, like 100% increase will cut it in half, but then you're going to see diminishing returns, right? If you have 200 increase, it'll be 2 over 3, it'll be 0.66, very similar to the equation of increased mana reservation efficiency of skills. So you can't just get 200% and then just have 0 recharge time. Energy shield recharge rate is a form of recovery, which is very important to note. There are things that can modify the amount of recovery, right? So if you have things like increased recovery rate of life or energy shield or anything like that, that will benefit your recharge as well. By default, 33% you get per second. So if you think about the first time you take damage, let's say you take one big hit, removes your entire energy shield, you're at 0. Takes 2 seconds by default to start the recharge. And then since you get 1/3 per second, 3 seconds later, you'll be at 100% energy shield. So it takes 5 seconds after taking a hit to go back to full energy shield, which in Path of Exile is a very long time. And the other thing is any damage that you take will interrupt that recharge, and the recharge will fully, you have to wait that full 2 seconds to restart again. So it's 5 seconds to hit full energy shield. And then right as it starts, if you take another hit, you're waiting another 5 seconds to hit full energy shield again. So, in Path of Exile, that's generally can be pretty comfortable while bossing, but while you're mapping, if you have no other source of energy shield recovery, leech, ES on hit, ES on block, anything like that, if you're relying, and I run into this a lot as a hybrid build, is if you're relying on your energy shield to be up while you're mapping, think of your running through your map. How often is there a 5-second period where you take no damage? Besides stopping for a blight or, doing a league mechanic or something, you're probably not going to have that 5-second period. So, be very conscious of that, especially if you're putting together a hybrid build where, you're being very considerate of like, hey, I'm considering this 3000 ES as one of my defensive layers. But while you're mapping, if you have no regen, if you have no ES on hit or leech or anything, you're very likely going to be at 0 energy shield the entire map. So just, be aware of that. Stun prevention. While the character has any energy shield remaining, the character has a 50% chance to ignore being stunned. This bonus is not additive with other stun avoidance modifiers from passive skills and equipment. The chance to ignore stun granted by energy shield is rolled entirely separately. So it's cool by default, but the thing to know about stun is based on how much life that you have. Specifically like the raw pool of life that you have. And so if you have very low life, right? If you're like, hey, I have 2,000 life, but 5,000 energy shield. If that 50% chance to ignore being stunned roll fails, if you have very low life, you will probably be stunned on almost every single hit. Now, there are very cool things to deal with that. My favorite one that I've actually started using recently, because it's pretty new to the game, is stun threshold is based on 50% of your energy shield instead of life. So that stun threshold, right, there's basically when you take a hit of damage, whether you get stunned is based on how much life that you have and versus the size of the hit. Consider having 4,000 life, like an okay amount, if you have decent defensive layers, if that's considered an okay amount to not get stunned all the time, if you have this mastery, boom, you're up to, the equivalent. If you have 8,000 energy shield, which, if you're a big energy shield based build, this is a good way to deal with getting around stun. In addition to that, like the most common one that you'll see for low life builds, that is like the most traditional thing, is presence of Chayula. If you're doing like a low life build, this is the most traditional thing that you'll see, but it's very obnoxious, right? Because it gives you 0 damage, and especially those softcore trade players, everybody wants more damage all the time. The nice thing here is it says you cannot be stunned, gives you nice chaos res, which, especially if you're like a hybrid setup, you want hybrid or low life, you do want more chaos res. And 20% of max life will be converted to energy shield, which if you're low life, you're reserving your life as a percentage anyway, so you don't care about how much life that you have. This will just fully counteract that downside of having very low life and relying on energy shield as your primary hit point layer of defense. So that is the top level understanding of energy shields. I really think that this encapsulates the basic understanding of what it is and how it works. You can think of it as just like a nice defensive additional layer. I'm a really big fan of especially using it on like witch builds where your character will most traditionally be in this area where you can just take a few extra nodes. Like you have a character that has really high intelligence, and there's a bunch of nodes, really good for Templar as well, of course. If we type in energy shield in the search right here, this is obviously the way that the game wants you to play the game. Energy shield is all up in here, and especially if you're a trickster, look at this guy. He loves energy shield. If you're a witch or a Templar, you'll have these nodes that just have like some other side benefits, and it can just be like, by default, really nice to just take like, if you're passing up here, take these 3 nodes. You might want to path through here, take Arcane Focus, especially if you're taking your life, you can go into Written in Blood and Melding. And it's just a really nice additional pool of hit points that's like, as I said earlier, not going to do a ton for you while you're mapping, unless you have some other sorts of recovery. But especially when you're fighting bosses where you're kind of like ducking in and out, it can prevent a lot of those one-shots and just make that portion of playing the game much more comfortable. And that's how I think of it, as like a baseline. If you're just doing very, very simple things and you're not trying to build into anything fancy, we're going to go over a couple of the fancier keystones in a second, I would encourage you to just always consider doing a build where if it's easy to get a little additional energy shield, understand the downsides, like, you're not going to have it up while you're mapping all the time, but it will prevent you from getting one shot as much, particularly when you're bossing. And it may be just like really easy to get. And now there are a couple keystones, and generally when people are building around and playing around energy shield, they will almost always be taking one or more of these keystones. And we'll talk about a couple of the other mechanics as well with this. So one of the keystones here is Wicked Ward. The big thing here is energy shield recharge is not interrupted by damage if recharge began recently. Now, 40% less energy shield recharge rate. So instead of taking 3 seconds, it will take, like 5 seconds. But the big thing is this will counteract the fact that generally you won't have energy shield while you're mapping. And then Chaos Inoculation. This is the famous one that everyone thinks is the bee's knees, the gardener's potatoes, the brightest bulb in the tool shed. CI is a very, very specific keystone that dramatically changes your relationship with energy shield. So maximum life becomes 1. So when you pick CI, and like I can even do this really quickly as well, you'll see that I have 172 energy shield and 4,700 life. But if I go over here, path, and take CI, you'll see that my life becomes 1 and my energy shield becomes 178. Yeah. Well, the thing is, obviously when you do this, you want to invest entirely into energy shield and ignore life, reject life, only embrace the shield. But the really, really cool thing that it gives you is immune to chaos damage. Yes, not even 100% chaos res, because that can, that's what things used to say. It just says you are immune to chaos damage. So the cool thing here is that things like self-damage with Forbidden Right, any sort of poison, any damage over time chaos stuff that's on the ground. There's a lot of that crap in the game right now, right? This allows you to totally ignore many, many of those downsides. And really neat thing is by setting your life to 1, you can use things like damage on a full life support. You can't get culled. You know, the expedition remnant that says cull enemies that are 20% life or less. You are always at full life no matter what, which is really cool. And also the chance to and duration of both being stunned and receiving an elemental status element is based on your maximum life before CI takes effect. So you still, even if you're building around CI, you do want to be finding some stun avoidance. Now, the other thing, big thing to know is that your life is not the energy shield. I have survived with 1 life still remaining. Energy shield is not your life when you're CI. So I actually have 179 combined hit point pool. Since the base life value is overwritten by CI, the only advantage life modifiers provide is a reduction on stun and status ailment thresholds. Low life conditions will never take effect, so you can't do anything like, any low life stuff like building around pain attunement right here because you are always on full life. You cannot be on low life. The exception to this is Coward's Legacy, lets you build around it. Full life conditions, as I said, will allow you to use damage on full life support. So this is actually really, really nice. There's a lot of builds that, you may struggle to find an additional damage gem that, doesn't have a downside, right? But damage on full life support, you still get a 34% more damage multiplier, which would be really nice. Let's see. For CI builds, this is just general advice. It's generally best to wait until you have high energy shield before taking it because you're just going to have a significantly reduced life pool. Like, you will always have a reduced life pool with CI because you are just losing that amount of life. So, for my own personal feelings on this, make sure if you're going to build CI, make sure there's a big advantage, right? Like versus, hey, just go for 75 chaos res. Is there a significant downside of your build? Or is there not a significant upside of taking CI versus just going for like 75 chaos res? Is chaos res the reason why you're dying? Is there a good reason for you to reduce your max life to 1? Now, especially today, there is more chaos damage in the game. So I think you can make a decent argument for that. All those toxic things, the toxic balls from Arch Nemesis, anything like that. But even still, I find once you have like a good amount of chaos res, like my character, I'm very, very happy with the chaos res that my character has. And I don't find it remotely interesting or useful for me to even be looking at CI, right? Like I have 55 chaos res and then 75 chaos res against damage over time. And I feel like around here, things like even fighting Cirrus or the Hunter, chaos damage is not the thing that's killing me. And there would just be no benefit besides if I really wanted to consider like a damage on full life support gem for, altering my build towards a CI thing. Like if chaos damage is not what's killing me, like, I'm trying to belabor this point because very often people will come and chat and ask me like, hey, I think your build is really cool. Have you thought about doing it a CI? And the answer is always yes. If I thought CI was better, I would have gone CI and recommended CI in the build guide. Because I didn't go CI, there is a reason. And the reason is CI is not an advantage. And in fact, like losing that life, losing, being able to use life flask, stuff like that, is a significant downgrade for that flavor of a build. For builds that it fits, like an int stacker, right? Where you have a ton of int, you're scaling a ton of ES, and it takes advantage of damage on full life support very nicely. And it's actually really hard on that build because you want to use all your suffixes for int to get enough chaos res to like up to counter that downside. CI is straight up perfect. Like it's like I don't even see an argument for not using CI for an int stacker. When it fits, but don't try to, jam that square peg in a round hole. Other very unique keystone here is Eldritch Battery. It is a keystone that makes energy shield protect mana instead of life. So the big thing here is when you take damage, the damage is going to hit your life. Your energy shield will no longer be protecting your life anymore, but you spend energy shield instead of mana. The cool thing here is that since the damage that you're taking is not going against your energy shield, it doesn't stop the recovery. So that recovery rate of your energy shield will allow you to just like, you'll always, as long as you have enough, you're not spending insane amounts of spell cost, you will always have available, mana. Your energy shield will be your mana. Now you will have 50% less energy shield recharge rate. So, if by default, let's say you have 300 energy shield, by default, you would be getting 100 back per second. That will be cut in half. That will go down to 50 energy shield recharge per second, but you'll always be recharging. So as long as you're spending less than 50 mana per second, then your ES will always be enough. Eldritch Battery is an awesome keystone for a lot of builds. that allows you to, reserve all of your mana and not even have to worry about that. The Keystone is right up here, which is, pretty handy. Also, Eldritch Battery plus Chaos Inoculation is very bad. Your life becomes 1, and then your mana protects your energy shield goes over your mana instead of your life. So you have 1 life and you will always die. Do be aware of that. You will find many, many people using the helmet, the Devouring Diadem that comes from Katarina from Betrayal for getting to get Eldritch Battery for free, basically. Really, really good way if you're struggling with mana cost for your build. Like to the point, right, where like even if you're a champion or a juggernaut or something, you can get 1 piece of gear that has 200 energy shield on it, like a pair of boots or gloves, and you could use a Devouring Diadem, and then boom, all of your mana problems are just solved. So that's a really good tool to keep in the back of your head. I don't want to go into too much detail about this type of stuff, because God, once we go down the Leech rabbit hole, Leech will be like 2 videos on its own probably. And I don't even know what I'm holding off on going for that one. Leech is one of the most complicated things in the entire game. But by default, access to most Leech in the game is not through Energy Shield. You can get some Energy Shield Leech in a couple places in the tree here. There's a little bit of Energy Shield Leech here. There's some Keystones for it. Or sorry, there's a Cluster Jewel for it. So there are some sources of leeching on Energy Shield. The thing to know is that leeching with Energy Shield by default is half of the amount that you can leech of life. By default, if you just get a bit of Energy Shield leech, it'll be like almost imperceptible. Each leech instance from Energy Shield maxes out at 10% of your total Energy Shield, whereas default life leech is actually 20% per instance, which is obviously twice as effective. Now, to catch up with that, that's why if you do want to build around Energy Shield Leech, and do know that Leech is based around hits, so it's not if you're doing any damage over time, you can grab Ghost Reaver right here, which you leech Energy Shield instead of life. So any life leech that you do, this will convert that to Energy Shield. But the most important line, in my opinion, to Ghost Reaver is that maximum total Energy Shield recovery per second, as I just said, is 10%. Gets doubled to 20%. That will make it catch up to the percentage for life. Now the big downside here is you cannot recharge Energy Shield. So if you have no source of regeneration, you can regenerate by using another Keystone here. Yeah, like Energy Shield is all like Keystone based to like make it act more like life. You can use Zealot's Oath here, where life regen is applied to Energy Shield instead. So all of those sources of life regen will actually go to Energy Shield instead, which is great. There is also a Watcher's Eye mod while affected by Discipline to regen your Energy Shield. And also you can be, as always, an Inquisitor. This guy is the Giga Chad here. He will actually, his life regen will also apply to his Energy Shield. So that's really good for him. Yeah, I think that is as deep that I want to go for a lot of those specific mechanics. The big important thing to know is just like building around that recharge and then understanding converting into regenerate, leech. There's also things like ES gained on block, replenish. I guess they changed the word to recover ES from the Aegis Aurora shield, which is, very popular these days at 20 divines. All right, that's it for the 5th episode of the PoE Mechanics series. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below what other topics you'd like me to cover. There are so many in Path of Exile that we got a really big list, but I'd love to know what I should prioritize to help you guys out, learn the game, and keep enjoying it. As always, gigantic thank you to all of the patrons for supporting me, making this possible. And you can go to patreon.com/subtractem as well if you'd like to check it out. But anyway, thanks for watching, and well, enjoy the end of the video. See y'all later. Bye. Generic, shitty synth music that says congratulations confetti for me, the winner, again. The game has been guessed. Oh, this is the most generic YouTube shitty sound I've ever heard in my life.